Okay, we are going to pick up from Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis. We're starting Daf Chav Gimel today, but we're going to pick up from the Mishnah on the bottom of the Daf. Mishnah says as follows: Marchikin es asulam min hashayvach. We have to. I'll make room for you, Chaim. Perfect. Marchikin es asulam min hashayvach arba amas. One must distance a ladder 4 amas away from his neighbor's nest. Why? If you look at the diagram in note 18, you'll see forget about the point of the wall, right? But you see very clearly that there's a wall and then there's a ladder. You have to make sure that the ladder can be right near the person's nest. What's going to happen is, if you have a ladder, there's an animal. They explain it's like a weasel, very similar to a weasel. Will come out of his little pit, climb up the ladder, and eat up the little birdies. Therefore, you're causing a hezek. That's a kaiso. We're going to see the Gemara a lot more in depth. What is he doing? Is he doing a grama? However, so too, a person must distance a wall from the gutter of his neighbor. Why? Like that, he should have space to prop up his ladder. That's really on the page before. If you look at diagram 18, there you clearly see there's a room. You need to have place for a ladder to go on a slant, right? You need that ladder to go on a slant. Okay, that is the Mishnah. 2 halachas, one regarding a bird's nest and another one regarding space to put on the ladder. So the Gemara inquires as follows. Lema masnisin, let's understand that our Mishnah, let us try to say, why? Who's Shitas Rabbi Yaisi? The Rabbi Yaisi Amar, we brought this Shitas Rabbi Yaisi before, an earlier dapim, regarding a person could plant a tree right near the boundary of his friend, even though the roots are eventually going to threaten the walls or its pits of his neighbor. Rabbi Yaisi says, tough nuggets, I'm going to do whatever I want. And I'm going to plant my tree because right now, today, it's not causing any damage. So too, we're understanding that in our scenario, why can't I put up a ladder? Because the weasel is going to come and cause damage. Same thing, I need to have space. The space is not the raya. The raya, I think, is from it's really from the weasel.
That we're talking about this in the Gemara.
Yes, fascinating Gemara. Okay. So that's what we're thinking now. It's not a nizak lahachik, it's atzma. It's not my issue by me putting up a ladder. Zok the Gemara afilu tamer Rabbi Yaisi. You can even say that the Mishnah would concur with Rabbi Yaisi. Why? Because Amar Abasi said, Ki avina bei Rav Kahana Amar. When we're the Talmidim by Rav Kahana, he would often say as follows: Moidi Rabbi Yaisi begire dite. Rabbi Yaisi agrees when actions which are caused directly. Giri means an arrow. Just like an arrow, the second you let go of the bow, it's going to go 50 yards and hit the target. Just like a bullet, you press a trigger. It takes a trigger of an action in order to happen. That's called your direct action that's causing the damage. Okay. Masha'enkin, by the tree, it's not really direct. I plant the tree, and throughout the years, the roots eventually go into my neighbor's yard. Hachanami, here too, regarding the shayvach, the ladder, zimnun, what's going to happen is, zimnun de bahadi de manichle, that as soon as you place the ladder, the weasel is peeking out of the hole. He sees you place it. He jumps out while he's sitting there, right? He's sitting in the hole. He jumps out and quickly climbs up the ladder to eat the little birds. So therefore, we look at it as you're basically an extension, totally the cause of the arrow for the weasel to go up. So they're trying to bring out a simple question. Why can't I, the moment I put up the ladder, protect from weasels? I put up the ladder and I make noises and I kick. Like that, no one's coming out. They get scared. They go into their pit. And then later on at night, already at a future time, that's when the weasel comes out and comes up. So that would be considered a grama because it's only later on. That's what grama means. It's direct. It's not now. Kiri delay means right now.
What it constitutes right now? A day, a minute?
Not a day, not a minute, not a time. Just like you understand, the second you really let go of a arrow, it shoots out and it hits the target. So too, there's a grama constitutes is when you have a trigger reaction only later. This is not so much of a reaction. You can't really say that the bow is a reaction. It's really what happened. It is a reaction, but it's not something that's a process that's taken a few moments.
If you make noise that keeps it away from it.
Oh, so look, it's not an arrow. It's only happening later. He's going to run away, then come back. So he's trying to answer.
Trump's ear is a good example.
No, what?
That the guy pulled the trigger.
Right, he pulled the trigger, and immediately it wasn't a grumma.
He can't bring the bullet back.
That's it. That's a different point that we're going to learn on Shabbos. But it says you can't bring it back. But
Channel 7 on Saturday night would not admit that this was an assassination. It said on that channel, possible assassination. You hear? Possible.
okay,
And then I said to myself, you're right. The guy aimed for his ear. He wanted to give her an earring. Maybe that was it.
all right,
Maybe, or maybe the guy that got killed, maybe that person was his intended target.
right.
In other words, that ladder became permanent? Is that
It's more than it's not necessarily that it became permanent. It's like me pulling. It's like me basically. There's an animal. There's food right here. There's a cat. The cat sees that food and he really wants. I quickly come and I take either my hand and I let him hop on me so he can hop right on the food. What I'm doing is basically doing a direct action to cause it. So they're trying to ask, why can it be that I scare him away and then later on it's only going to be gramas. The Ramban says an interesting chiddush. He says there are biases maided that anything that has the capability of being a garmi, which means it's really an arrow and you just prevented it for a moment, even though later on it's grama, Rabbi Yossi maided. That's what they bring down over here in the name of the Ramban. Let's continue right. So the Gemara questions this. Why are you telling me it's garmi? V'haguramahu. All I'm really doing is I'm putting on the ladder. So if I'm putting on the ladder, just grama. Right? You can't say it's my force. Garmi is my force. Grama is causing it. I was saying it's not grama, it's garmi. It's not really accurate. It is grama. Grama means it's not me doing it. I just put the ladder and I walked off. It caused an action of the animal to climb up the ladder. From here we see that what? Grama beni zaken is aser. Beni zaken is taka aser. So what comes out? That when you say an arrow is causing damage, you're including actions that result in the damage. The result is you're not going to have birds left. And Rashi explains that Enechanami, Rashi explains that Enechanami, they were saying that Rashi says, Grom is Alkanasa, Philaman Amr, Deloy Doin Dina de Garmi, Upatim Lashalim, also Ligroin. No one's going to argue if you're Rashi explains that Avadi regarding payment, you're not chayiv. However, regarding the heter of causing the damage, when you want to, Rashi, ma'akev, you have a right to prevent him from causing the damage. Okay. Rav Yosef, Havai, now we're going to say an incident that happened regarding Grama. Rav Yosef, Havai, Hanu, Tali, Dahavu, Asi, Vyasu, Tusayu. Rav Yosef had these small date trees, and the bloodletters, they would come out for the help. They would take out their blood under the shade, under his tree. However, it's very crucial. Taisus explains they were sitting on their own property, right? And Taisus is coming from, he says, I see that from the Gemara that says, where's my pen? I would like to underline this. He says, Taisus shall bekarka shalahan hayu yishvan. He's going to see it in the Gemara. So they're sitting on their own karka. And however, even though it's their own karka, the birds would come down to eat the blood. They lick the blood, and then they would go right up to Rav Yosef's date trees. And what would happen? They would come and consume the blood. They would fly up onto the palms, and they would ruin the dates because it would end up full of blood. Okay. So Zaktig Maram, Rav Yosef, Apikalu, Kurkumaharcha. Rav Yosef was saying, go draw your blood, basically, get rid of this crowing. The kurkur is a lotion crowing, the kurkur. However, He's trying to say is get the crowds away so they don't come here. But you putting your blood, you're causing my dates to get ruined. My pawns. Abaya would say, Abaya to Rav Yosef, I feel very bad, but it's only a grama. Why should they have to move away? They're sitting in their yard and it causes it. Rav Yosef replied to him, Amaris, we learned already. Grama ben Izakin is usher. So too I should require you have a right to say, move away. Abaya again defended the bloodletters. They already have a chazaka for 3 years. So we're going to learn this. Allah is a chazaka. Chazaka is that someone, we learned this earlier, that someone who causes, someone is in a property for 3 years and they're not moiche. We're going to get into the sugyas of chazaka, sheishim motaina, any motaina, daf mem aleph. However, there's a concept of chazaka, which means if you're quiet and you don't make a protest, I have a right to say that I bought the property, the schusim, not the property. I bought the schusim to do X, Y, Z. So basically, the bloodletters are saying we bought the schusim from Yosef. He was complaining. We said we'll buy it off him, the schusim, to do our bloodletting over here. Okay. However, the Ramban, they bring down the chazakas even once that he acquired the right to do it from his neighbor. And the nakuda is that he's doing it on his own property. By you being quiet once, LMI, you're fine with me doing such an action. Okay, but so in chazak l'nizakin, there's no such a thing as a chazaka l'nizakin. You can't taina. I was quiet. You gave me the schus. There's no such a thing. There's nizakin, and more than that, Rabbeinu Tam, they bring down a Taisus and chazaka l'nizakin that even if he bought, he's minded that he paid him, he could retract. Because he thought I could have handled the heat, as they say. And then I realized it was way too much damage and it's cost me too much. So Abai continues the argument. My law, wasn't this regarding this halacha of Nachman and Eichazakal and Nizakin, Dafka, Ramariyama was only Bekutra. They were talking about smoke, which was heavy smoke coming out of the ovens. Razvid Amar Bebeisa Kise. And Razvid said we're talking about Mamash, a place where they used the outhouse where the waste remained up, it's quite, I would say it's quite not pleasant. So he was a very mephonik. He had a very delicate nature. He said, even though most people, there's a little blood from the birds, they picked it up, they wash it with soap, they wash it. However, Rav Yosef was a very big mephonik. They bring it down from Taisus and Psachim, talks about it over there. How he's a very big mephonik. Taisus brings down Shayistinis, like it says in Arvei Psachim, that he was has that. He talks about over there. Yosef himself said that he was a very big mephonik. So that is a time of Ein Chazakul and Nizakin. Chazakul and Nizakin, when Rav Nachman said that, and Rav Mami and Rav Zvid said it's a Kutcher Beisakise, it wasn't those two specific cases. It was trying to bring out a point of a nizakin means something substantial. That was the whole point by saying something substantial. He's trying to say is even blood on dates is something enough substantial for me to complain. Okay, we are going to continue on the Mishnah Daf Chav Gimel Lamed Aleph now. Marchiken es hashoivach min ha'ir chamishim amma. One must distance his bird nest 50 amas from the city, and we're going to explain why. And similarly, a person should not build a nest within his property, unless he has 50 amas in each direction. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Base Arba Kairit. One has to have an area of 4 car in each direction, which is around. The Taisiyanta says it's a little over 273 amas in each direction. Meloi, where do we get to that number from? Meloi Sheger Hayayna, which is the extent of a Yaina, a dove's uninterrupted flight without stopping off. Okay, however, if he purchased the nest from the previous owner, then a filu base roiva, even if the entire property is only a quarter of a kav, which is around 10, a little over 10 by 10 amas. The halach is arehu beches kasai. Then the dove, the nest of the dove remains in its chazaka. and therefore he's able to keep the nest even if the neighbor is complaining, because we're able to see that the neighbor the neighbor, the keach, is going to be able to taina a chazaka from the mic. Now let's just see if the parish chai. Yep, they have Geshmak illustrations. Let's try to go through it.
Can you explain it again?
Yes, definitely.
Having, it has to be 200 something amas away.
50.
50, no, yeah, I did say 273 amas in each direction. This is what's going on. We're going to see what's the problem with having a
Oh, it's not 100 almost.
no. It says yesh l'chamishim ama l'chol ruach. Yes, 50 amas in each direction,
Yeah,
which is 200 amas.
yeah.
Four directions.
So it's
200.
So it's
It's 200 amas, correct. No, and then review this as a base score, which is 280, 270, a little more.
The-
Wait, because you're on this, you're trying to figure out who cares about amas right now. We're going to talk about it in a moment.
What is this? What has to be away? A dovetail? Is that-
A nest of the doves. You see, these are nests. These are nests, and we're going to see why. Basically, let's jump right into the Gemara. What's going on with this dove nest, right? Now, so Rashi does explain, Julie, to give you a little context. What's going on over here? What's going on with this dove nest? Rashi explains that the doves would rely on the 50 amas. Picture today, you're wearing this beautiful campus, and the doves rely on the food. How far do they rely on? They're going to eat. The Gemara is going to explain also that up to 50 amas, they're already full. That means to say is, here is a field. If you have a dove nest within 50 amas of a field, you know what's going to happen? You know what your doves are going to do? They're going to go chugging all the guys from inside, all the food. More than 50 amas, we're going to see. That's the Gemara's question right away. It can't fly more than 50 amas, but the Gemara is going to explain that he's going to be ready full. So I just wanted to give you context. You guys see you're struggling. What's going on with the dove? Therefore, we want it to be the same thing. We want it to be the same thing from a field, from a garden, from the city. The reason why it should be 50 amas away from the city, because otherwise it's going to go into the city and eat up everyone's gardens. Therefore, we make it at least 50 amas between the neighbors' properties, between the outskirts of the city. So let's jump right into it. That's the problem. The Gemara questions Tanakama. Chamishim ama v'sulai. The problem is that the doves are going to fly and eat food only 50 amas. V'haraminu. We have a Mishnah clearly says it. We learned this in Bava Kama. That ain't person nishbin liyanim. One might not set traps to capture these birds unless he's 30 shleishim risks. It has to be 30 risks away, which is around 8,000 amas from the nearest settlement. The problem is we're worried that, let's look at this picture. If you're going to have these little traps close enough to the city, you're going to be taking these people's doves. If it's very far, we're going to say it's coming from Hefker, it's coming from Goyim, but it's not coming from this city. Okay, so Rabbi, no. Meishat shaiti tuba. Avada, they could fly a very great distance. However, that's what I was trying to tell you, Julie. Their stomach is filled within already 50 amas. So the first 50 amas, they're already full. They're not going to fly more than that. Okay. More questions. You tell me, do they only fly really 30 risks? We're talking about the traps now. We're going back into the Bava Kama. Tanya. We learned in a brayso similar over there that says it'll be Yishuv in a settled area. However, mea mil lo yifreis. You know, let's set up a trap, even 100 mil. So it's clearly that they could go more than 100 mil from their roost, from their place. Why are you telling me only 30, which is 8 and 30 risks, which is 8,000 ams? Rabbi Yosef Amri gives two answers. Either I could tell you Yishuv Kram, which means to say it's an area settled. If you look over here in the picture, we're talking about the Yishuv Kram. There's plenty of vineyards. And we're going to see what happens with that. Rav Amar B'Yishav Shevachim. Or it's talking about Shevachim. What's the nafkamina? What's the help? It's basically they're able to go pit stops, we call it, right? They're able to travel from one Shevach to another Shevach to another Shevach, or from Krumming. You're right, they could go up to 100 mil. That's when they have a bunch of pit stops. When it's empty, they could only go up to a 30 risk, which is 8,000 amas. Right tomorrow. Let it be. You're telling me you're in a place of Yishuv Shevachin. Then why do you need to come up to 100 million? Not able to put on traps. You shouldn't be able to put on traps because of the Shevachim. You're not making sense. And the word gives three roots. Even same, I could tell you that I have a Shevach, my Shevach, they're all mine. Even same a D-Day.
What's Shabbat?
Shevach means the nest. Even same a D-Day. Even same belongs to a Knani, and the halacha of a Knani is if it flies into a trap, it's considered Aveda, which is mutter to keep. Even same, or I could just easily say we're talking about a hefker. In all these cases, the point is that the nearby dove nests are not a factor in forbidding one to set up traps. Therefore, we come on to 100 mil. 100 okay. 100 mil, actually. All right. Now, the next part of the Mishnah says, Reb Yehuda Aimer, base arba kurin v'chuli. One must have an area of 4 kur. However, he says very clearly that if he got it in Lachai, if he got it he bought it, then he even gets a filu, a quarter of a kav, he gets to keep his chazak. Now the Gemara is going to deduce from this halacha, Amrapap, Itemer Zvid, some say Zvid, Zaisa Meres, by seeing by Lakeach, tiny Lakeach, v'tiny Yerush. So let's give us a little context. Now the Gemara is going to talk about a Mishnah, the Mishnah actually, Mem Aleph, we're going to learn this in Mer Hashem very soon. The Mishnah is going to talk about what we're going to be learning Cheskes Habatim, which talks about many chazakas. Even soon, we're going to see that if a person lives in a property for a few years, after 3 years, he has established his chazaka. We're going to see it's machlekes the Ramban and the K'tzais. What's the reason of achlishtarchar, takanta, whatever the reason is, we're going to see that a person has a chazaka that he's able to say, I bought it from you, and what do you want from me? I lost it. How many years can I hold on to my contract? He doesn't need a shtar, and etc. However, we're going to see the Mishnah Mamalf is going to say, Kol chazaka she'eni ma'itaina eina chazaka. If you agree, I was just here for 3 years, but I never bought it. I just figured I could just live in here for free. That is not a chazaka, and Avada, we chuck you out. So what happens by a lekeach or a yerush? A yerush, a father was living in a karka for many years, or 3 years. And then the son comes in, suddenly a previous owner says, get out. So the halacha is, the Bezdin says to the yerush, we're going to say the taina for you, because you have no way of knowing your father's business dealings. We're going to say the taina for you that he bought it. Same thing by lekeach. We're going to say that the previous owner would have had the taina that he bought it. And the Gemara is going to talk about, we're going to see also, if it's 3 years, what is the halacha? If the father had it for 2 years and you had it 1 year, we're going to go extensively into the sugyas and cheskes about it. We're not going to touch it today. We're just going to try to bring out the concept, to give context to what's going on over here. In this scenario, we clearly said that base, if you own the karka, a base, a raiva kav is not a chazak. However, what happens if you buy the property? Do we say that you have a taina that the meicher, right, the person you bought it from would have had a taina that he had it already for an extensive period of time, and he paid for it? So we clearly see that if all I need is a quarter of a kav, must be that Bezdin is going to taina for me, that the person I bought it from, Elamai, paid for that schus. Okay. So let's go through it. So Frek the Gemara as follows. Why do you need to tell us this halach? We already know this, these halachas of Yairish and Lekech. Yairish, we already know this. Tanina clearly says this in Mem Aleph, where it talks about Kol Hazak Sheni Matayna Nechazak. It says Abba Mishum Yerusha, however, and it's Taina. So why does our Mishnah need to repeat it, this identical halach? You're right, it doesn't need it for Yairish, it needs it for Lekech. Lekech, it's the Chiddush is not talking about Yerusha.
When you buy a ground, when you buy a study, you need to start, no?
Correct. Well, that's correct. You bought the grounds. Now the grounds, who you bought it from? You bought it from me. All you have is a start. You bought it from me. Now, do I have a taina? That's the question. The original owner, not me, the original owner before me, comes in with complaints. That's the point. Or in this scenario where you need to say that you must have paid for the schusim. So you say, I don't know, I just bought the karka today. I don't even know there was an issue. So Bezdin says, yes, if I owned it, we could tell for you that the original owner, must have paid the neighbor chayim for the schusim to use something he betzim has a taina against. So correct the more Oshalakech Namitinian. We have it in the same Mishnah later on in Daf Samach where it talks about Lakachatz. Someone purchased a courtyard. Uva Zizin Vigustarais, which talks about ledges and balconies that extend over the public. Harei Zu Becheskasa. The halacha is he has a chazaka, which is the chazaka is that even though it's going over the Rishus Rabbim, and the Rishus Rabbim could bump into them. However, it's very possible we could be talking about, either he did it illegally. If the scenario that he did it illegally was, if you look over here, these are balconies, right? We see balconies coming out, or ledges. So there's going to be two options how it's in the Rishus Rabbim. It's very possible that he went back, and it's really his yard. And therefore, it looks like it's in Rishus Rabbim today, but it's very possible he went back, or he convinced Rishus Rabbim. That's what Rashi says, two options. So we already see that what? Toyanin lelekeach. If I bought this karka today, suddenly Rishus Rabbim start complaining, wait a second, we're bumping into it. Bezin says that the person who built it either moved back, or somehow made a deal with the village to be able to do it. Okay, so why does our Mishnah need to repeat this halacha? That's the most question. Fan for the Gemara, I need it. The Ashmin and Hassam, if you would have only taught me the scenario with the ledges. Hassam Gavirishas Rabbit. We have an easy way of explaining it. He really went he receded into his property line. Inami, or another scenario, or they, the members of the Rabbim, were Meichelet. Therefore, the claim is very, very valid. Aval in the case of the Ness, where it says why would I want to basically defend this purchaser? We have to consider the possibility they bring down that the previous owner was a very powerful person, and they weren't able to prevent him from doing it illegally. Therefore, our Mishnah tells us that we do it. Now, again, just to bring it a little better, even though we have no compelling reason to assume that the claim is true, as long as it's plausible, we're going to plead on the behalf of the Lekeach. So the Mar says, so tell me only over here, and I'll know over there in the case of the ledges. Here, it's what are we talking about? The Kibbutz Yachadu. It's only one person, his neighbor. If I say he paid him up or something, he made agreement with him, because he's a neighbor, it's very common. Of a rabbin, man pais, who could have been? Uman shavik, who could have yielded him? Nobody is authorized to act in this. Now, just to bring out one point, you have to explain there must be authorization, because we just explained a second ago that in the case of ledges, achule gabe. So Taisus does say that Zayin Tuve Ir, the 7 people of the Vad, could be Meichelet. So there is somewhat of a concept. Otherwise, you're stuck. However, the Mice of the Gemara rejects that because it's very unlikely that they would have done it. And if they would have done it, it would have been a call coming out. Okay. Memela tzricha to tell us that even in such a scenario, what do we say? The Ritva explains that we have to say the first case of Rishos Harabim was that he went back and receded into his own property, which is a very valid complaint. Therefore, it's not a problem. Then let's just finish up one last point before we finish the Amid. We already saw this. Again, this is what we saw where he was complaining earlier. Rav Yaisa was saying, right, when we questioned Rav Yaisa, we talked about those are the two cases, smoke and an outhouse, which both have tremendous. We all understand that it's real, something that's not, people are not considered about that. Okay. We are going to continue on Chav Gimel Amud Beis. Now we're going to go into very fascinating sugyas of Karoiv Veroiv. Roiv means a state in the Torah, Acharei Rabim Lahatos. Today, you're able to eat a lot of stuff. You're able to eat, you have meats. We're not done. We're just doing Amud Beis. We'll continue with Amud Beis. We're starting the new Mishnah of Gimel Amud Beis. We're going to see Acharei Rabbi Mahatis tells us we go basar roif. However, we find the concept by Egla Arufa. The case of Egla Arufa is if someone finds a dead body, the closest village must do a kapara, whether it's by bringing a karbanis and whatever state in the Torah. So we have a concept of karev min Torah, and we have a concept of roif min Torah. So that was just a agdama to this whole amud. Nivpul hanimtsa. Nipul means, Rashi says, is a geisel, a little young dove. Hanimtsa betoich chamishim ama. It's in, I find a dove, I look up within 50 amas, I see a bird's nest, chicken coop, dove cote, whatever they want to call it. The halach is, harehu shabala shevach. You must return it to the person who owns that shevach. Chutz mechamishim ama. However, if I found it more than 50 amas, harehu shemaitzai, I have a right to keep it. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain. Another point they bring down, the Ritva explains, this is that's a sugya of Elam Metzias. This has nothing to do with our sugya. It's interesting, but basra, this daf is really a sugya of Elam Metzias. However, we're bringing it down because we already spoke about the shayvach earlier and everything. Now, a nimtza bain shnei shavachas. You pick up the dove, you look to the right, you see a shavach. You look to the left, you see a shavach. What do? You measure it. Karov lezeshalai, Karov lezeshalai. They take out literally what the refs take out in football. They take out the yardstick, the lines. They see where is it exactly, and then we measure how far it is away. What happens? Mechsa, smack 100 amas, and it was smackly in the middle, 50 amas. Yachleiku, mechsa shel shneim, yachleiku. Okay, quite clear halachas, right? Very black and white so far. Zok the Gemara, Omar Rab Chanina. So I already gave the Akdama of the Gemara of Roiv and Kar. Now, Omar Rab Chanina, Roiv v'Karev, holchinach Roiv. Whenever you have a question that there's a Roiv and a Karev in there, the halach is we go after the majority. Va'avagav the ruba deraisa, kruba deraisa. You're going to say, what do you mean? Like I told you, acharim lahatais and egla rufa. They're both deraisa. Still, hafilahachi ruba. That was the halacha of Rav Chanina. Yeah, Rav Chanina said this concept. We have a rive and you have a carb. What do? We go after the rive. The rive is superior. Practic mara mesa Rav Zeira state by egla rufa v'ha ya'ir. Talks about the town hakroy v'lachala, which is nearest this dead body, the slain person. The halacha is the person of the town, right, must bring, they're the ones who get the kapar. They have to, it becomes their issue, and they have to bring the egla rufa. It's very possible where there's a town that has many, many more people. We still go by the closest village. Clearly, you see that karite overrides a right. Think about it. I have, let's say to make it easier, I have Muncie and I have Haverstraw. Haverstraw is a much smaller Jewish community compared to Muncie. Right, we all know where Haverstraw is, whatever it is, Flatbush and Mountain and what?
What do you say, Flatbush?
Borough. We have Brooklyn and you have Manhattan. Who has more Jews? I would assume very quickly Brooklyn has many more Jews. What happens if you find something right near Brooklyn? I should say maybe. Right near Manhattan. The halach is Manhattan has to bring the egla rufa. The question becomes Brooklyn has many more people. We still see we go busser the car race. That's what we follow. Mar says, no, but they're like, there's no town. It's not like a scenario where you have Manhattan and Brooklyn. We're talking about the only place is Brooklyn. Okay. Where they're all equal in population. Okay, go bus of the road of the valve. Go look for the town. Let's say, I still think it is Brooklyn has the most Jews. Let them bring it. That's the chances where it came from. Mar says, we're talking about the Yesheves Bein Aharon. It's situated in the mountains, very low chance that they're coming from Bnei Brak. Let's say Yerushalayim has the most Jews. If you find something near in America, we're not going to say that they're coming from there. We're going to say it's the towns in the vicinity. Okay. Therefore, it's not a kasher of Chanina that says we go basarayv. It's not. Let's go on our Mishnah. What does it say? Nimtzol and nimtzol b'techamisha ma'ama harishav shayvach. Question is why? What happens? 50 amas away, there's a small little guy who has a shayvach. However, Mahadrin or one of these massive KJ Satmar meats have their 200 amas away, have their factory. Let's be real. The Rav should tell us that it's coming from them. And Afal Pika, the Mishnah says we go basakaris. Mar says, but the leka, there's no KJ meats right there. There's no other, or they're all equal in population. Okay, Yihachi, if you're talking about there's no one equal, Ema Sefer. What does the Sefer say? Mechamishim ama, haresho might say. If one found more than 50 amas away, then you're able to keep it. Now you're telling me that there's no dove coat in the area larger than this one. It certainly fell from this one. It's the nearest dove coat, right? It's right there, and there's no one larger. So why can you keep it? So to give a little explanation in this question, let's go through note 12. All of us. Note 12, because it's going to give us a little more context to explain this question a little deeper. What's this question? Note 12. This is what note 12 says. This is not a problem if we say, as the Gemara originally assumed, that there is a dovecote in the area larger than the nearest one. Why? In such a case, the Mishnah's ruling is in order. For one can say that the largest dovecote is ownerless, and therefore its birds became the property of whoever found it. Right? So Taisus explains, this is the Taisus. Taisus explains that this is what it means. The we could say no problem, it's either half or shakutim. But now that you're telling me that there's no one bigger, right? That becomes an issue. Let's see. The thrust of the Gemara's challenge to Chanina is as follows. What difference does it make whether the bird was found more or less than 50 amas from the nearest dovecote? If there's a larger one, like Taisa explains, which is ownerless, then I could keep it because I could assume, right? Even though it's 50 amas away, it's more, even though they're 50 amas away, still I could be assumed that it's the hefker one because more than 50 amas away. I have no reason to assume it's the closer one. However, if there's no larger dovecote, the bird should be awarded to the owner of the nearest dovecote, even if it was found more than 50 amas away. So the Gemara's questioning now is, you're telling me there's no lekka, there's no other dovecote, then who cares if it's more than 50 amas away? Say it's that one. If there's another one that's bigger somewhere else, Zaktai said I could explain to you that I have no reason to assume that it's the closer one, because after 50 amas, you already left the taina that it's mine. So if so, I'll say it's the hefker one. But now that you tell me the lekka, there's no one shall hefker. Who else is it? Let's be real. It didn't come from a different continent. Why would I think it's not? Okay. Now it does become a question that even if you hold carb, then this scenario doesn't make a difference. They bring it down over here at the end of note 12, that it doesn't make a difference carb or roughing, right? Carb or rife. So let's say you're going to tell me what? You go bust a carb and not bust a rife, you still have the same difficulty. It shouldn't make a difference between 50 amas left. So it's not a question dafka really on Rav Chanina. If you think about it, that's what they bring down. Rabbeinu Yoina answers this question. I'm not sure the answer. I would have time, Yitzhak, I want to try to ask someone or find out this answer the question, but it's not specifically a question of Chanina, because according to Chanina, you're telling me that what? He goes, basar, karai, he says like rive and karai, you go basar rive. So therefore we came into Chanina of Delaka. Why does it have to be 50 amas? You can ask the same question even if you say karai v'rive, you go basar karai. You still have the same question. Be Delaka, why 50 amas? Okay. But we're not going to get too deep. We're going to try to continue. So the Mar answers, we have a different text. We're talking about a bird that only hops. It's so young that you have no choice. If it's found within 50 amas, you have to give it to the one that's closer, even if there's a larger dovecote, because it hops. It can't go far, more than for more than 50 amas. Right? How do we know this? He said, a bird that hops, it's too young to fly, doesn't have its wings yet. Therefore, it's almost a vadai that it came from that shayvach. However, so what's the chap? But after 50 amas, again, after 50 amas, you lose the concept of Ravukva that only hops to the amas. So then we have no choice. We have no ref to say that it came from the closest one. Because just like you're telling me that only after the amas, how is it here more than 50 amas? Elamai, there's no time to the closer one or the larger one. I could say it's coming from Hefker. Rashi explains it. Okay.
Just coming from, I didn't get you.
Basically, we're telling us that the answer is that we're talking about the bird doesn't fly, it only hops. So if so, even though Chanina said a concept of in the real belt, we go when you have a karev and a rife.
Yes.
Who do we go, Busser? We go Busser the rife. Rife is superior. Now Mishnah, we have a karev, which is in 50 amas, but there's a rife, KJ meets is 100 amas away, or hefker is 100 amas away, which is bigger. And the Mishnah says, if it's within 50 amas, you go to the closer one. More than 50 amas, you get to keep it because, like I say, it's hefker.
Does that include the young dove?
Only the young dove. So what's that? Right. So the question is, what's the difference 50 amas and not 50 amas? The answer is that once it passed the border of 50 amas and it doesn't fly or it doesn't have wings, and somehow it got here, we know it can only go 50 amas. So just like it's not that, just like we can't answer how it got past the Amis, so there's no reason to say it belongs to the closer one. Why should I say the closer one more than the further one?
How you can say, because that's the,
But it doesn't go more. It only hops onto the Amis. So just like it's when something's interesting, right? When something is not normal, so we don't go basra normal. So once I'm not going basra what's normal, I can already say it's hefker. That's what Rashi brings down. Okay. Now Rav Yirmi asked a question, and we're going to see only at the end of Bava Basra and Kuf Samachay Mamish, towards the last end of the Masechta, we're going to see what happened to him. By Rav Yirmi asked the question as follows. Let's picture this: 100 amas. Ragloi achas betoich chamishim amma. One leg was within 50 amas of one dovecoat. Ragloi achas chutz mechamishim amma. And one of its legs was more than 50 amas away. So it's like on the line.
I recall somebody asked this about Shabbos, about Daled Amos. One foot is on and one is
Right. So I guess
they threw him out.
Mahu, what happened? Threw him out. They threw him out.
Same person.
I'm wondering. Yeah. So the reason why they threw him out, because it was a very absurd question. Now, some say it was very hypothetical. So Taisus answers a different point. Taisus tries to say is that the rabbinic measures are so accurate that if a bird, this is how Taisus Malach makes a little sense, that if a bird, his leg is past the line of 50 amas, Elamai is not called a medada. Medada means someone who can't fly. Elamai is called a bird that flies. So then we have the halachas of a bird that flies. And remember, we came on, the mission is only talking about a bird that doesn't fly. So don't ask me about a bird that flies. Bird that flies after one leg out, and then we go bust it right. That's how Taisus explains it. Okay, right? Because Taisus says, and the parish mishum debay mosel, because it's very possible we can find such cases, right? So he wants to say the chol midas chachamim kenu. It's perfect that ein medada can be more than even a regular achas. Okay, the medada. The point is about medada. I think it's my first time in my life that I'm really totally understanding this concept of dov ku, that Taisus measurement of medada of 1 foot out is what was the problem? Wow. Okay. Let's go weiter. Toshma, but eventually they let him back in. It was only temporary. Okay, they readmitted him in. Toshma, let's learn a ride from a mission. It says Nimsa bein shei shavachis. Karl is eshalai, the Karl is eshalai, right? We take out the tape measure. We're assuming that one of them has more. So it's not a problem. They're both equal in size, therefore it's not a ride. Why don't we go basa the Raif, and therefore it should be a kasha chanina, right? Okay, so it's a kasha on Karav and Raif. Like we said, we're talking about there's vineyards in such a case. So we already explained over there that it could hop and hop for even 30 risks, right? It doesn't stop. Them Isa, the Ma'alma Asi, if you argue came from some place, even the Medadi like Matzi Asi, since it hops, it wouldn't be because as long as the bird can hop and still turn around and see its nest, Midadi, Viloi, Loi Midadi. Therefore, here it's very interesting. We're saying the opposite. Not like we said earlier, there's a lot. Rather, we're saying that there's vineyards blocking him from seeing his nest. Therefore, it only go till where he sees his nest, and therefore he turns around and the vineyards are blocking him. He wouldn't go from that far, and therefore we say it's Elamai coming from one of the two Shabbat, and that's why it's Yachloik. He's afraid of getting lost, and that's what's Yachloik. Tomorrow we're going to pick up on Chavdalit and Aleph. Everyone should have a wonderful day.